watching Eddie begin, his era coaching at Bowling Green?
So proud of Eddie George, and he's just, I always call him a Renaissance man. I mean, he was a great athlete, went on and became a great NFL player, gets his master's at the Kellogg School, on Broadway, owns companies, in TV, and then one day he decided, you know what, I want to go back and help kids. And he jumped into coaching, which is not an easy thing to do, did a fabulous job at Tennessee State, and he is so excited to be at Bowling Green. I mean, every time I talk to him, he's just like a kid. And so he knows he's got a lot of work to do, and he can't wait to do it. And I think the community is going to enjoy him, the university is going to enjoy him, and he's going to turn out some good teams.
Is there any advice that you've given him, as he's really gotten into coaching or anything like that?
I spent a lot of time visiting with him as he was beginning his coaching career, because like any good learner, he had a million questions. That's just the way he was. Well, how about this? How about that? He would call and say, we got this going on, got that going on. And you can see he just got more comfortable, and he got himself a staff that's aligned with his values and with the way he believes you play the game of football. And he's excited about his staff here. The only advice you give anyone is get better every play. It's the first game. The world's not going to end in the first game. If you have a resounding victory, it doesn't mean you've arrived, because you got to get ready to play the rest of the season. And so he'll do a great job, and just proud to be here on this big day for him.
Urban is the 5th straight Ohio State head coach to go into the College Football Hall of Fame. Does Ohio State make Hall of Fame coaches, or do Hall of Fame coaches make Ohio State?
Ohio State makes Hall of Fame coaches. I mean, at Ohio State, you have so many great opportunities and great kids, and the state loves the game of football, and I don't think it's a coincidence that if you get a chance to coach at Ohio State, you're probably going to have some pretty good success. Now, a guy like Urban Meyer had extraordinary success, not just at Ohio State, but at Utah, at Bowling Green, at Florida, and so he's very deserving of going into the Hall of Fame. And when you're blessed to have coached at Ohio State, there's a good chance you're going to get to that dinner.
Of course, you've known Eddie George for a long time. What's the biggest differences in development that you've seen in him as a head coach from his time when he took the job at Tennessee State to now taking his job at BG?
And, I think, like anything, you have to have the right person first to do anything. How do you go from the NFL to Broadway? Because you have the right kind of person. How do you start your own companies? How do you do all the things he's done? So he was the right kind of person, and he happened to know the game and have had extraordinary experiences in the game. And you knew that he loved young people. And so he just developed that but it was a new business. It's a little different being a head football coach than it is a player, being a head football coach than a Broadway performer. But he was the right kind of person. And so experience teaches us all. You can't read and get the understanding of how to do something. You have to go do it. And he went and did it, and now he gets to be at Bowling Green, and I think it's a great marriage.
Because of Eddie, does it feel like the profile of Bowling Green is as big as it's ever been? Between him, between just Maction, between all this stuff, it feels like people are talking about Bowling Green more than they ever have.
Oh, I think there's no question. Eddie George brings something to the Mid-American Conference and to Bowling Green that is like, woo, wow, Eddie George is at Bowling Green, and that lasts until the first game, right? And then really you become like any other coach, and you're judged on watching the teams improve. How do you do over the course of time? Nothing's built in one season, nothing's built in maybe 2 years, but if he can have a good sustained career here at Bowling Green, which I know he would love to do, that's going to add so much to Bowling Green and so much to the MAC, because he does get initial clicks or whatever we do nowadays, right? Because it's Eddie George.
Jim, I'm curious from your perspective, just kind of college football big picture, what are your thoughts on the way the NCAA has changed its positioning on postseason bans and not wanting to punish current players for previous regimes, like in the case of Michigan?
There's so much change and there's so much up and down. I think I really don't have an opinion on how they're doing right now. I think we're a little bit up in the air as to what do we really think college athletics needs to be all about. And But you have to go, you have to run the path. There's another season, there's another decision and so forth, but I don't really have an opinion on how they've been consistency-wise or anything like that. They got a lot of big fish to fry, and hopefully we'll get working on it.
How concerned are you for the future of college football for those FCS programs, the Youngstown States, as well as for the group of four, the Mid-American Conference schools?
I think if you keep the values in mind of why you want to have an intercollegiate athletic program, which is the lessons learned, the camaraderie, the community spirit, those things, I don't think you can ever defeat that. That is going to outlive anything. How we're going about some things and decisions being made, I'm a little concerned that do we have the right things in mind sometimes? But hopefully we'll get some great people in the room and figure out the best going forward, because as you can see all over the country, intercollegiate athletics, group activity, marching bands, anything that brings people together to work together, to become a part of a team, we need those things in our high schools, we need them in our colleges of all sizes, and we've got to make sure that there isn't a problem in the future for the FCS or the smaller FBS, and we have too much to offer to mess this up.
Commissioner talked about, wanting the federal regulations and things like that in place to kind of help with the state of college athletics. Just how much do you see kind of those in the state of Ohio, pushing it and trying to get that as well, knowing the influence they have?
Yeah, I really think that, like anything else, we first have to come up with what is the plan. And I think what's hard right now is I don't know that anyone feels as if, okay, I know exactly where we want to go with intercollegiate athletics. And I'm not sure you'll get some of those federal conversations completed until there's a clarity of, okay, exactly where is this going, answering all the FAQs, like, well, what about this, and what about that, and how are you going to handle this? And so I think we have to really get a clear path ready, and then we have to figure out, we're not like the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball. We're not going to fire a player in the middle of a season. These are college kids in the middle of a college year. So it's going to be different. We got to figure out how we're going to do it. And then I think once we can get that plan that everyone says, aha, I think that's the way to go, then we might get the federal help and get some of the decisions for how it will affect the Bowling Greens, the Mid-Americans, the FCSs, and the Ohio States of the world. All right, troops.